Identity with Tayanika. Welcome to another episode of Explore Your Identity. Here we have conversations about both negative and positive things that have shaped who we are today. I've got another amazing guest today. My guest today is none other than Gary Millar with an A. Gary, thank you so much for allowing me the pleasure of having this conversation with you. I know you're very busy and you've taken time out of your very busy schedule to be here. Welcome.
Tav, thank you so much for inviting me to join you on this podcast to explore my identity, explore your identity. It's always a pleasure, and we're never too busy. Let's just make some time and share what we can.
Yes.
That hopefully we can learn about ourselves, but actually help others learn about who we are and what made us the person that we are.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's start with a little bit of your background, how we got to the Gary that I know and love. Maybe if you give us, in your own words, a bit of your background, wherever you want to start.
Well, I have is the word strange maybe a bit too strong? Maybe weird is better. Upbringing, life. So I was born in Leith in Edinburgh, which is, some people say that Leith is a different place, but it's a district, a suburb of Edinburgh.
Different,
yeah. It's different in that it's old fishing, trawling, trading, then a cargo kind of place of docks, of hardy people, very working class. And I was born in what was eventually designated as a slum, a room and kitchen. Now, room and kitchen means one bedroom and another room. And that room was the living room, the kitchen, the place for bathing. So I used to be bathed in a ceramic tin bath on top of a stainless steel sink once a week. And we used to share the water with my other brother. And in those days, no money. We'd eat porridge, sometimes for breakfast, for lunch, and for tea, for dinner at night, because we had no money. So it was quite a difficult background. We cooked on a black grate. The black grate was used as an oven, as a hob, as a way of boiling the kettle and about heating the room. And Mum and Dad slept in that room in an alcove behind a curtain. So that's where my life started. And then it took quite a dramatic turn when I was 3, and I didn't know then, and it actually worked out years later, why I kind of wasn't at home anymore. I was in care and didn't like care. Was really worried, where's parents, etc. And I didn't discover, although I didn't put it together until even later, but I did discover one of the reasons is that when I was 6 and I was coming out of an operation to remove my adenoids, I was in hospital, and this nurse gave me a baby and told me this baby is my brother Leslie. And I had no idea I had a brother Leslie. And I actually said, I don't have a Leslie, because I didn't know how to kind of work out what all this meant. And I was frightened because he looked strange. My mother came in at that point and told off the nurses for introducing me to my new brother, who was 3 years old and 3 years before. And the reason I was in care is he was born into this world disabled, and he thought he was going to die. And then up until the age of 11, I was in and out of official care and what they call kinship care, which is with family, with aunties and cousins and such. And That was until 11 years old. But during my primary school years, 8 different primary schools, 8 or more different homes, and I now have my social work records, my care records that tell me some of the places I'd been, but some were unofficial. And that is, a member of the family took pity on my mum and my dad and took me in. And that was quite difficult for me. And it actually helped me eventually kind of establish my identity. So I wasn't exploring it, but I didn't want it. I didn't want the identity I had. And what I mean by that is up until the age of 11, and particularly going into new primary schools, I was in the later years bullied for being the new boy that came with tattered rags, hand me down clothing, because there was no money around. And my parents themselves, they had some issues. They had issues because my brother was born the way he was. And I've not told you what he was born with, because at that time we didn't know. We didn't discover until I was 11 going on 12 what was
So
actually wrong with him.
at that time, well, what did they classify it as? Just a disability, or?
It was a disability that my family, and in particular my father and my dad, accused my mother of creating his disability. So she actually went through a number of years really suffering from severe mental health issues because she felt guilty. She took that blame on because it was her fault. Was it because of alcohol? Was it because of smoking or whatever? And actually, in the end, it wasn't any of those things. But for the 8 years from when he was born to 8 years later, they didn't know what was wrong with Leslie. And therefore, it was all her fault. And she suffered quite badly. And that's why I was in care, because she was in and out of institutions, in hospital, etc., having breakdowns and having electroshock treatment to help her forget some of the trauma that she had gone through. And actually, in the end, it wasn't her fault. She wasn't to blame.
Take me back there in terms of your relationship with her whilst you're going through all this and whilst you understand that she has her own issues to deal with. How did you feel about her as a parent, as a mum?
Remember, I was under 11, so I wouldn't have understood from a maturity point of view what she was going through. I hated it. I hated going home from school when I was with her because they would fight all the time. There was arguments that you would hear in the street below, and we at one point lived 2 floors up in a tenement building and in the centre of Edinburgh, and I could hear them in the street fighting, arguing. So I didn't want to know. I kind of wanted a better life. There was a point where I didn't want to be alive because of it. And that sounds fairly dramatic. It was true. I didn't want to be alive. And particularly when, during her trauma, and I'll give you one example, I won't explore it in any great detail, she came home. Just picture for a second, there's little old me, I'm 8 years old, and I'm babysitting my younger brother, Norman, that's the middle brother, not the disabled one. And mum and dad are at the pub, and I'm 8, and we're on our own. And I'm leaning on a couch, and I'm leaning on the back of the couch, looking out the window. And I can still see it today. I still remember. It was raining, and the raindrops were dripping down the Georgian framed window, the little square windows. And I remember seeing the traffic lights lighting, being replicated in the drops. So amber, greens and reds. And I'm looking on to what's called Salisbury Crags in Edinburgh, which is where I'm from. And I looked at this beautiful scene, and I'm kind of disappearing off into a relaxing, wonderful, magical world. Then crash, bang, wallop, and the door comes barging open, and it's mum. And she's drunk, angry with Dad, and she starts shouting and swearing, etc. Dad wasn't there, and she kind of storms over in a direction of a chest of drawers, and she starts rifling through the drawers, and she brings out a Stanley knife, and she's going to kill herself. She's going to commit suicide. And I remember I'm 8, and I'm in this 1 minute surreal, next minute shocked, astonished, and actually really upset. Why is she so angry? Is it my fault?
Yeah, at
Am I
that
taking
age.
on the blame and so on? So you're asking about how did I feel? Was it my fault that she was like this? I didn't really get it, and so on. Anyway, I stopped her from committing suicide. I took the Stanley knife off her. She had it next to her wrist. I don't know if it was she was going to follow through with it or not, but she was very close. I can still see her sliding the blade out of a Stanley knife, which is a DIY knife. In America, that'd be called a blade cutter, probably. A box cutter, I should say. And I managed to take the blade off her and hide it. And she then went off drinking vodka and took sleeping pills and prescription drugs and basically fell asleep. And Dad came in about half an hour later, completely oblivious to it, didn't know it happened, didn't ask where she was, and he went off and slept on the couch, and it was never spoken about again. I didn't know what she was going through, except I knew that she was very upset, having serious issues, but didn't know really why and who was at fault. Was it my father? Was it my dad? Was it me? Was it Norman? Was it something else? You can't kind of at that age work those things out until you get to a level where you're kind of at an age where you start to question, where you're an inquiring mind, inquisitive, and that was me later, not earlier. So I didn't know and didn't really want to be around it. And actually at some stages when I was with family being cared for, I loved it. And I remember one of my aunties, and I'll kind of move on from this, but my auntie, Sandra, she was actually a cousin, but Auntie Sandra loved my mother, loved us, and she cared for me 3 times. Although it was a little bit weird, even at 7, and then later on at 9, and then at 10, I was babysitting her children, who were very young, and I should not have been babysitting. And she would come home on a Friday and a Saturday evening from the local Polish club. They were not Polish, but from the local Polish club, because they had great music, great environment, and cheap booze. And they loved it. And they would come home, and the windows would be opened, and they would turn the record player on, and they'd put on Elvis Presley. So Auntie Sandra was a lover of Elvis, of short skirts, cigarettes, and booze.
What era was this?
This was probably from 1966 to about 1970 kind of period.
The miniskirt era.
Oh yeah, and she loved it. She loved it, and I loved Auntie Sandra. She was such a loving, caring individual. So it was always fun in her house, even though they drank too much and they had too many parties. But actually, they were salt of the earth. They were really genuine, working class, wonderful individuals, and I just loved them. Sadly, Auntie Sandra later died of, sadly, drinking, smoking, and had a heart attack after having a party one night. And that was the saddest thing ever when she left, because she died before her mother. Her mother equally was a wonderful individual. And her mother was very close to us, Auntie Betty. So Auntie Betty, Auntie Sandra, they were a good side to our family. But actually, so was my mother. But in those days, I didn't think so. I didn't know. And she didn't know what was happening. She didn't understand why she was in this position. So at age 11, they were given, finally, an understanding of why Leslie, my youngest brother, was born disabled. And he was born thalidomide. But it took 8 years to prove that he was thalidomide. So when he was proven to be thalidomide, there was a case for the parents of thalidomide survivors to be given compensation. So therefore, My parents got compensation for the disabilities, for the trauma, and then Leslie himself later got his compensation. But it's quite shocking to look back. The compensation my parents got was somewhere between £3,500 and £5,000 for what became a lifetime of trauma.
Yeah.
So really quite a difficult thing to get my head around is, why is a life worth so little? And it was. But from the money they got, they bought a flat in a place called Gorgie, in Gorgie Road, near Tynecastle. And Tynecastle is where Heart of Midlothian Football Club play. They're not my team, but neither is Hibernian. But near the football ground, near Murrayfield Rugby Ground. And I was going to go to secondary school the next year. And this is where my identity was established. Because I didn't want to wear hand-me-down clothes, and I didn't want to be bullied. So therefore, I consciously went out to get part-time jobs, to earn my own money, to have money to buy myself clothing, food, breakfast, dinner or lunch at school, because otherwise I wouldn't have got it from my parents. So I got a job as a newspaper delivery boy, and I used to run up and downstairs every day for weeks upon weeks, getting very fit, delivering newspapers from a Monday through to a Sunday, and loved it. And I got something like today's equivalent £1.50.
Wow.
Not a lot of money. And then I got a job working in a supermarket where I went in to do some shopping, and there was a sign saying they were looking for people to work there. And I became somebody who used a pricing gun to price all the tins of whatever they might be. And through the years, I would then cut bacon and cut cheeses and cut bacon on, you can imagine an electric cutter.
They look
pushing.
scary.
They are very scary. My little fingers at 12-year-old were going through those.
Wow.
But it was allowing me to get some form of income to then buy clothes. So today, I am known for Gary, Dapper Gary. Gary's always well dressed, always wears a nice jacket and a waistcoat or an American vest, and so on, and normally a tie. And it started then because, one, I didn't want to be bullied anymore, because I was bullied at schools for being a mess, for maybe being smelly, maybe not being one of the people, one of the boys, one of the children, because I was always different. And I hated all of that.
And it was all beyond your control, really.
Couldn't control any of it.
Yeah.
What I could control was working. So I got my third job. A lady came into a butcher shop where I'm actually also then using my money to buy food for our dinners. In Scotland, we call it our tea, our evening meal. And I was in there, and I remember the words, can I have a £1/4 of Hazlitt? Hazlitt is a very cheap, delicious, but spicy, salty meat. And I would ask for that. And this lady stood next to me, and I was only probably about 4 foot something, and I'm below the counter. So I'm looking up and doing this. I'm hanging onto the edge of the counter, asking for this Hazlitt. And this lady says, "Oh, hasn't he got a gorgeous smile?" And the butcher said, "That's Gary, but we call him Smiler." So despite all the problems, I was always smiling, and still smile today. It's my natural thing. And she took pity on me. And she said, "Would you like to do my messages?" Now in Scotland, that means go for the shopping, go for her errands. And I became her errand boy. And I did that for 4 or 5 years. Wow. Sadly, cannot remember her name, which is awful. I should remember, because she was a lifesaver with the money that she also gave me. That's my 3 jobs at age 12, going on to 13. And where I was at primary, messy, not in a shirt and tie, not kind of running my own life in many ways, far too mature eventually than I should have been at that age. I dressed nicely, I went to a new secondary school, and I became top of English. I became second top in maths. I won the English prize, the history prize, and so on in my first year and in my second year. I was bright. Primary school, I was told I was thick. I was told I wouldn't account for anything. I would never get anywhere. Schooling, secondary schooling, changed my life. And actually, I never got bullied again. I never had a fight with anybody again. So the ability to establish my identity at that age made me smarter dressed, smarter at top,
Yeah.
and actually kind of gained my identity that does change as you get older. But I think at that point, that was my formative years, not the 0 to 7 that people talk about being formative years. Mine was probably 0 to 12 were my formative years, because it was the first time Gary felt like Gary.
Wow.
Whereas before, I never felt like Gary.
Wow, it's really interesting just from what you've just said. I'm hearing that you were able to consciously create a path for yourself,
Yes.
despite whatever happened before. I think that's just amazing.
And you know, so as I moved forward at school, when I got to 16 years old, I discovered girls, I discovered alcohol, I discovered going to clubs or discotheques in those days.
What age?
I was about 16 years old.
Okay.
15, 16.
Yeah.
I used to go to the clubs. One of my friends, Robin, had his own mobile discotheque, bebop discos, and we did weddings and birthdays, and I learned all about music in those days and loved it. It was a great life. I did lose sight of schooling a little bit.
Yeah.
I am in the position of having 13 O grades, GCSEs, 13. Well, I got some in my first year of studying, and then when you do your A levels, or in Scotland, Highers, I failed at some of those, and you get given, if you fail, you get another O level. So I've got 2 English O levels and such. So I have 13 of those. Eventually, I got 2 Highers. I wanted 3. In fact, I wanted 4. I wanted to be go to university, be a student, and study architecture.
Yeah.
Didn't get to do that. Joined the civil service. Went to London. Worked in the House of Commons, in the Houses of Parliament. Worked in Whitehall for a government minister, not in a political role, but in a civil service role. That's where I eventually met in London my partner, who is now my husband, and we've been together for 42 years.
Wow.
And he also helped me find my identity, because Stephen was the first person ever to tell me that they love me. I had never had a proper hug or somebody telling me love me. My mum and dad never told me they loved me, and actually Stephen was the first. And I was 21 when that happened.
So was that part of the reason why you'd have moved to Liverpool?
Partly, it's a little bit strange, and we haven't got a lot of time to discuss it.
Yeah.
But what happened is I was on a 3-year contract in London on a secondment. I had to go back eventually. Steve and I got together in London, and I had to go back a few months later. I had to go back to Edinburgh. Stephen was desperate to get a job in Glasgow or Edinburgh to join me. Couldn't. So he phoned me one day in 1981 and said, "I'm coming closer to you. I'm moving to Liverpool." And I said, "Liverpool's not that much closer to Edinburgh." Anyhow, that's what happened. He moved to this wonderful city in the December of 1981. And I
was
used to...
3 months old.
You were 3 months old. Well,
Yes.
there we are. And I would have said younger. Yeah. So, but I moved here eventually to study at John Moores University and be with Steve. And that was in 1983. And I've loved it ever since. It's been just the best move ever. I studied technology. I discovered I did have a brain. I could graduate. I could go to university. And today I'm an honorary fellow of John Moores University. So I've gone from somebody who was thick at primary school, who wouldn't have passed his 11 plus, to eventually actually work with all 4 of our universities locally, Edge Hill, Hope, John Moores, and the University of Liverpool.
Amazing.
And I just love the city. So as I've got older, from the age of 11 through to where I am today,
Yeah.
my identity is ever evolving because I'm learning from people. I'm learning all the time. But my formative years made me a little bit smarter in terms of how I look and actually how I think. But the university and challenges and people have actually made me think in a more empathetic way, a more of a connection point of view. So my emotional intelligence in terms of level is very high. My academic intelligence isn't the highest, but I'm a hard worker, which means when I apply myself, you get 120% and more. It might take me a little bit longer to do things, but if we can all kind of get rid of our baggage, work out what our problems are, which I've been able to do recently by writing my book. As I've explained before, I am writing a book about the traumatic start of my life through to where I am today. Through trauma, there is hope.
Yes.
And through listening, there is hope. But there's hope in that we can all pay it forward. My mantra is pay it forward. I'm not interested in wealth. I'm not interested in authority. What I am interested in today is there is people like Gary being beaten up, being abused, being affected by trauma at a young age, which explains the way they are today. So currently I'm working with a charity and John Moores University, ensuring any care leaver who wishes to go to university, who's got no money and no loved ones, and they think no hope, there is. Because I'm paying for their university tuition fees and their expenses together with John Moores University and a very famous person called Yoko Ono, and we are helping those children go into university. So I kind of have established my identity.
Yes.
But it's taken me a long time.
From what you've said so far, I feel like around the age of 21 is when you probably kind of understood your identity. Am I right in saying that? Or was it earlier or was it later?
I think if you're looking at it in terms of infancy, primary and secondary, I would say my infancy was 11, 12 and my secondary was 21, and then coming to Liverpool and establishing myself in Liverpool as I've got older and as I've looked older and sounded more mature and more knowledgeable was my third age. So people do constantly change and evolve. It's your surroundings that do that to you, and the ability to better understand yourself as well. I think I better understand myself today than I did when I was 12.
Would you say you are the best version of yourself now?
No.
Not yet.
We can be better. All of us can improve.
Wow.
Thank you.
Right. I just want to move on because I'm conscious of the time. You touched on a little bit about it anyway, about your current path, which involves, tell me a little bit more about your current path.
So today I'm semi-retired. I was Lord Mayor of Liverpool. I was a deputy mayor. That was an honorary position. I didn't get paid to be that. I loved it. I loved
For how many years
people.
altogether?
So altogether, I was elected in 2008 and I retired in 2021. So how many years is that? 13 going on 14 years. And I loved working with the people of Old Swan. Being in politics and being an elected member, people think you must be paid a lot of money and it's a lot of authority. No, it isn't. It's dealing with issues like getting the bins emptied and getting rid of rats and getting the lighting put back on, kind of stuff.
Yeah, rubbish on the streets.
And rubbish on the streets and potholes. And I would get that every single day. And I actually loved helping with those things, particularly when you can help. Sometimes things are outside of your control. Because I used to get people complaining about hospital appointments being cancelled. A councillor has got nothing to do with hospitals or the NHS or the buses, as an example, or the police, but used to get lambasted for when they made mistakes and it was your fault, Gary. And each councillor does it as a vocation. It's not a job. And they get paid £10,000 a year. And I loved every minute of it. but it got to a point that it was time for me to move on. I was moving on in 2016. I was convinced to stay, but I stayed on until 2021. I am even busier today doing things, even though I'm kind of semi-retired, in that I'm working with the ADHD Foundation. I'm working with the Cornerstones Foundation, which is a care leavers charity that you know well.
Yeah.
And
I'm also a trustee for
you are a trustee.
for
Thank
the
you
charity.
for being a brilliant trustee.
Well, I hope I can make a positive contribution.
You are.
Yeah.
And you know, and this is part of what we all do, is little things and big things, but everything matters.
Yes.
And you never know where that conversation leads to. And one of the conversations you and I have had was about working with the Hilton in the city centre.
Yeah.
Well, they helped us raise £20,000 recently, but that was just a little conversation that has led to something fairly wonderful, because it's going to help those individuals go into further and higher education that we were speaking about.
And it was a lovely night.
And it was a lovely night.
Yeah.
And your dress was stunning.
Oh, if I tell you about my dress, right? Because of that dress, I went out to get a taxi because I had to go and get changed before I drove home, because the dress was just not the right dress to drive home. So anyway, I ended up getting a lift from Mo, who owns us from Signature Bespoke.
Yes.
And his wife. They gave me a lift back to 7th Street.
Wow.
Yeah, and their boat was just parked across. You saw it, didn't you?
I did,
yeah. So that was an interesting night.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
He's a tailor, very good tailor.
Very good tailor. Yeah.
And you are a very good artist in fashion and design and making clothes. You really are good at it.
Oh, thank you.
But I mean, so these little things, as I say, all help. And so I'm working with the ADHD Foundation, supporting young people and young adults with neurodiversity. That is autism, ADHD, dyslexia, Tourette's, dyscalculia, and so on, dyscalculia. And I love doing that. But the care leaver side, my brother Leslie was in care until he was 59, until he died. I was in care until 11. I kind of get it. It's my passion. So in my kind of later years, I want to make a change, small and big, to help those that have gone through what I've gone through.
I think you're already doing it from now.
I am, but we can all do more.
Yeah.
And I want to do more. I want people to listen that have not gone through it.
Yes.
To gain some understanding and some empathy to what people go through when they're making decisions in policy and government, national and local and such.
I think you're a perfect role model as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I never know. I do suffer from self-doubt and that imposter syndrome.
I think that's a lot of achievers, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I think, how me? Why me? Really?
Yeah.
How did I become, so from Scotland, working class, from a slum, as a pauper, to become Lord Mayor of this great city, and gay. You think, put all that against most people, and you would think, I'd never achieve anything. I'd never get there.
Yeah.
You can.
You literally had every excuse not to. Yeah.
And that's why I've got this imposter syndrome. I don't know how it happens. I kind of think that part of it is my natural inclination is I don't talk bad of anybody. I'm always smiling. I'm reasonably, maybe sometimes too much positive. You can't be too positive, but I am incredibly positive. And I see the good in everybody.
Yes.
Everybody. And when people say to me, don't talk to her, don't talk to him, I'll say, no, I will.
Yeah.
Because I want to find out for myself. I will not
listen.
listen.
That is the best approach.
Yeah, I won't listen to negativity in any way. I detest some of the stuff that goes on social media and on TV. So I tend to kind of shy away from it.
Yes.
And
It's a healthy approach.
Of course it is.
It is.
It's not good for your mental health.
No.
If you have to, I lived in desperately negative circumstances from the age of 3 through to the age of 16, 17, 18. I don't want to go through that again. Why should I?
No.
So as I got older, I can move away from that. not shy away from it, but it is shy away from it because you're moving away, because actually there's loads of really nice things happening. There's a lot of problems as well, and I wouldn't shy away from that. But use your positivity to change it, to bring people on board, which is why I love the term paying it forward and that mantra, because I really do passionately believe I don't want thanks. I don't want an applause. What I want people to do that I help is to equally go off and help others, but not just one. Try and do 2 or 3. Do good for them. And ask them to go and do good for others. And then there's that ripple effect of a good society being not just created, because there is a good society already there, but a better good society in that
collective good.
I love that. Collective good. We all need collective good. And so I'm also doing today, so ADHD Foundation, Cornerstones Foundation, and I have been running for a number of years a pro bono, a free of charge business clinic.
Yes, which I was a beneficiary of, by the way.
You were.
Yeah.
And you recommended somebody to come. You shared a cab with a person quite recently, Chantel.
Oh, yes.
Who came to see me.
Oh, she did?
She did.
Oh, good.
And we had a wonderful conversation.
Oh, brilliant.
And basically I sit with now a team of up to 40 volunteers who all kind of think the same way I do in many ways, maybe slightly differently because of their careers. But people come to see us for business guidance, pre-start, new start, growing businesses and high growth businesses who maybe want a connection. They want to ask something about supply chain. Where can they get stuff? About importing, exporting, HR, human resources, about payroll, and about the accounts and marketing and intellectual property.
Yeah.
So I have sat in front of 25,000 people who are seeking guidance.
Do you know what? I must applaud you for what you're doing. And this is based on my own experience. Having been open at 7th Street for probably 18 months now. Before then, I was exclusively self-employed, working from home, then moved from that structure into a limited company. And what I've discovered is that there isn't much help for small businesses out there, which has been a bit of a surprise, because anytime you phone for anything, from a retailer's point of view, they're looking at me as H&M or Asda or one of the big retailers, and you're thinking, no, I'm not that big. Like, where's the help for me? So I think it's amazing what you're doing. Keep going.
No, thank you. And it's a team effort. It's not just down to me. I co-founded the Business and Intellectual Property Centre at Central Library. And whilst I was cutting the ribbon, I said to the head of the library, what are we going to be doing here? And he went through, you've got free access to specialist computer software that will help you with your business. You'll attend workshops. There are books, there are magazines, and you can come in and use them anytime you wish, and business support. And I said, who's doing the business support? And he said, the librarians. And I said, what business kind of background have they got? They haven't, he said, but they've been on the training courses. And business support, you can teach, but actually you need to believe it. You need to understand it. You need to connect with it. You need to have failed and been successful. You need to understand cash flow and business process. And I kind of get all that. But I've been doing it for so long that I said, what you need here is an entrepreneur in residence. And as it came out of my mouth, I knew immediately what was going to happen next. And he said, would you be that person? So I became the entrepreneur in residence, and basically every Thursday between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock at Central Library on the first floor, people come along. It might be on a Thursday, it might be 2 people, or it could be 20 people. You can never gauge it. And it's a drop-in. And 48% are women, 50% are men, 2% don't say or don't want to say, 23 to 27% are people of color, black and ethnic minority background, and 15% self-declare as having a mental health issue. I only say that for a reason. I don't normally talk about statistics, but we are accessing people that wouldn't normally access business support,
Yes.
because they would think, I have to be an H&M or an Asda to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
that support. They can come along to us, and we listen,
Yeah.
and we don't judge. We remain impartial and independent, and then we try and help. We can't always help, because sometimes it might not be as realistic as you think it is.
Yeah.
Money might be an issue.
Yeah.
Location might be an issue, and such things. But partnership working, coming together, collaborating is hugely important. And I've been doing that for many, many, many years. But more recently in Central Library, since 2015. And people thought that when I was semi-retiring, I'd give up. No, I'm doing more.
I know. I see you. You're everywhere.
And we have to be, because I think we're only on this earth for so long.
Yes.
And what impact can we make without expecting applause or praise? And that's how I want to die. That'll be my legacy.
You've achieved so much, and I can even tell you about some of your achievements. But out of all that, is there anything that you personally feel like this has been my greatest achievement? Can you think of anything?
I think on a daily basis that even the small things for me or others are the greatest achievement.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Do you practice gratitude?
No, I don't.
I think you do. You just probably don't realize you are.
I don't think, well, I never think of it.
Oh, okay.
I just do things.
All right.
It's instinctive.
Yeah.
You don't think about...
Because I'm in this mindset of every single day just looking around me. So by the time I get to the end of today, I'll kind of take a moment to take in even this conversation and just be thankful.
I am thankful.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful for the opportunities. I'm thankful for this moment now.
Yeah.
Talking about your identity, exploration, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going, helps you get there.
What's next?
What's next? Well, my book is...
Talking about where you're going, what's next?
So, well, at 2:00, I'm actually speaking to a stranger about, strangely, disinfectants that he wants to market overseas.
Okay.
I don't know this individual, but somebody from John Moores has asked me, would I give them some guidance on an international scale, and I will do that. It's part of my expertise. So that's from here. And then I'm off to pick up from, of all places, Hobbs in Castle Street are binding some of my draft copies of my books to give to what they call beta readers, pre-publication, and a proofreader and editor, an official one, to go through my 73,000 words, my 363 pages of a lot of what I've spoken to you today about, of where I've been, where I am, and where I'm going, with a message of hope at the end of it. That's what I'm doing. I'm picking those up, and then they're going off to be distributed to people, including a child psychologist and also a French TV production company who are keen to see what I've written, because one of the actors, very well known, I'm not going to say who, one of the actors is interested in doing something about it.
Wow. Just listening to you right now, I'm having other ideas of a different conversation with you. Maybe you should come back another time.
I'd be more than happy
because
to come back.
I've just remembered one of the things that you are passionate about is IT and all this other stuff. Oh, of course, fashion. We haven't even got to the fashion. But yeah, AI. I'm really interested in AI and technology and all this. And but that's a whole conversation.
Let's have that conversation later. I have my views about artificial intelligence, but I've actually got stronger views about sticking with your intelligence, your emotions, you as an individual,
Yeah.
not a computer that's been programmed to think on your behalf.
Wow.
We can't
Interesting.
lose humanity. We
Yeah.
can't lose our individuality, that cultural approach that we all
Yeah,
bring.
yeah.
That excitement.
Yes.
You've listened to me talk, and I've got more excited as I've spoke because you've become more comfortable.
Yeah.
With AI, it'd be like talking to Siri all day.
Linear.
It'd be monotone.
Yeah.
We need
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
Later.
Anyway, we like to end on with a bit of like fun questions.
Yes.
Usually it's about a handbag, but I didn't see you bring a bag.
I don't
so
have a
maybe
handbag.
I will say, what is an unusual item that you usually have on you?
I would say unusual item. Well, I carry my smartphone everywhere.
Oh, that's too common. Come
I
on,
know
Gary.
I'm attached to it too much. I'm known for my fancy cufflinks.
Oh,
And I
okay.
have a pair of, they look Chinese, they're not. It's two little red globes clasped in what looks like a gold tiger's claws. And they were, I bought these in Paul Smith in Covent Garden. That sounds fancy, but they're actually refurbished.
Oh,
And for a period of time, Paul Smith would go around the country.
I was
going
going to say, sorry to interrupt. I remember listening to his talk where he said he used to go on Portobello
Yes.
Road, and he would find these items of clothing, recreate them and stuff.
And that's what I've got from Paul Smith.
Wow.
And they're like my lucky cufflinks. I'm not wearing them today. I'm not wearing cufflinks today. I normally do. But so I love wearing cufflinks. Is that something special? No. And do I carry around anything special? Probably not. I kind of don't even have a watch anymore. So the smartphone kind of is in my old days, Filofax, my watch, my diary, my life. But it's on the cloud, being protected.
Yes.
But it allows me to make notes and this is important. I'm known for responding quite quickly to requests for help and for information. I could only do that with my smartphone.
Wow.
So it's like an extension of me, and it allows me to kind of spatially project manage the diversity of my life. Because my life is ADHD Foundation, the Cornerstones Foundation, paying it forward with all these business things. I'm president of 2 international associations, chair of one of those. I couldn't manage all of that if it hadn't been for my smartphone. I'm really sorry, but I'm a technologist. Is that a diary?
Yes, I'm a paper diary kind of girl. So my New Year resolution is going to be going digital. Because based on what you just said, because I try and learn from every guest, if I get an email, I look at it, and it involves me having to put a date down. My diary is with me based on the size of my handbag. So it could be somewhere at that moment in time. So then I don't respond.
Is too small.
Yes, because my bag's too small. So then I don't respond to that message straight away. So I want to get into that habit of being a lot more proactive with my emails.
Yes.
And that involves having a digital diary, right? I think so.
I have got a digital diary.
Yeah.
Which I share with my husband as well. So he sees what I'm doing.
Oh, that's good.
Although he did say to me this morning, "Where are you going today?" I said, "It's in the diary." "Oh, I've not looked."
Oh, okay.
So it only works if you look at it.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that, because I check my diary at the beginning of the week and then at the end of each evening, I update it. But some people send me emails where I can attach the appointment into my diary from
that
the
makes
email.
sense.
That's quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
I love that. It's quite simple. I love that. I like a simple life,
Yeah.
which is why I don't carry a great deal. I don't carry a bag. I never will carry a bag. In the old days, I had a briefcase. It's too cumbersome. And as I've got older, in the old days when I'd go on holiday, I'd take a huge suitcase on holiday.
That would be me.
Now they're getting smaller and smaller. And I've discovered this thing,
Yes.
non-iron clothes that you don't have to press.
Oh.
Now they're great.
Are they sustainable?
Yes.
Are they made of sustainable fabrics?
They're made from recycled
Oh, okay.
fabrics.
That's
Yes,
fair
they are.
enough.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
They may
yeah.
not be as sustainable as what though? Wool?
Yeah.
Cotton?
I know.
They are not sustainable.
It's an
How
ongoing
many
process,
gallons
isn't
are
it?
used to produce one T-shirt? Gallons of water? I think it's 20 gallons of water for one T-shirt.
I know.
Is that sustainable? That's why deserts have been created in places like Afghanistan, because they have got rid of all the cotton.
I know.
Because they've used all the water. That's so. What is sustainable these days? That's another conversation.
It's ongoing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. What is an item of clothing that you are emotionally attached to, or do you have one?
Some of my ties,
Mm-hmm.
I have a tartan or a plaid tie, which was given to me as a gift, and I'm loath to get rid, even though it might be a few years old.
Yeah.
I also have a Vivienne Westwood tie,
I love Vivienne Westwood.
and I just can't get rid of it. In fact, I should,
No, don't.
but I can't. I've
Don't.
got to keep it.
Don't.
So these are little items, and it's interesting. I mean, it's a funny question to ask, actually, because if you look at particularly men, as they get older, do the clothes that they loved when they were younger still fit? Well, my clothes do.
Oh, wow.
But I'm actually becoming quite good at having clearances, spring clean clearances. You have to do that, because I'll walk past a shop and go, I like that T-shirt, I like
Yeah.
that shirt, and I'll buy another one. And you think, and I go home and you don't need another shirt, you don't need another tie, you don't need another suit. Yes, I do.
I do. Well, you just reminded me of talking about spring cleaning. When I was around 19, I had quite a lot of disposable income, which I spent a lot on like designer clothes.
Right, okay.
And I would do that, get rid of them during my spring clean. And now I look back and I think,
Should have kept.
why did I do that?
I know. So I in my clothing, go back to the cufflinks. They are my favorite piece of clothing. I know it's an accessory,
Yeah,
but it
but-
is something
yeah.
that makes me feel special when I wear them. They look great, and maybe one of the reasons is I would say every time I wear them, at least one person will say, "I love your cufflinks. I like that."
Yeah.
Not because I'm looking for them to tell me they like my, but I actually think they look great anyway.
They bring joy.
And they're so simple. And they came from Paul Smith, and they were dirt cheap. 'Cause
Wow.
Paul Smith is not cheap.
No?
These were.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is your most memorable shopping experience? If you got one. I know you love to shop.
I do. Well, no, I don't love to shop.
For clothes? Or you just know what you like?
I just know what I like. I
Okay.
can go into a shop, get something, and walk out within
Yeah.
5 minutes. So I don't go browsing. In fact, I'm not a browser.
Yeah.
I think that's a waste of time. It isn't. A lot of people love doing it. So I'm very purposeful.
Yeah.
But shopping in Vegas in the Strip is like, wow. Like just big places.
Yeah.
That's an adventure. Gadget shops. I love going into gadget shops. Electronics. I just love looking at things that are electronics and talk about them. I never buy them,
Yes.
but it's good to see what they are. And I love cameras, so I do buy cameras.
And you take amazing pictures too.
I love my
do.
love my photography.
Yeah.
That's one of my hobbies anyway, and I've won a couple of awards through that. That kind of stirs you on to do more photography. A lot of it through my smartphone. My smartphone again is my camera for the main. Although I do have some very nice cameras. One in particular at the moment.
And what would you say has been your worst memorable shopping experience?
The worst.
Do I even have a worst?
I don't think I do.
All I know is I don't like food shopping.
I don't mind food shopping.
You don't mind? That's good. I don't like it.
I once said no to going into Safeway in San Francisco, very famous Safeway, because Stephen, my husband, spent 3 hours just looking at milk and bread, because they were all different percentages of something.
Oh, okay.
That would be my ultimate no.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that.
No, I'll just be sitting in the car reading on my smartphone. Last but not least, have you got a fashion-related question for me, fashion guru? I mean, you, the fashion guru here.
So what would you suggest is for a man, a male or a female, is next year's big item going to be?
Oh, wow.
What's going to be on trend?
Oh, my goodness me. Trend for women.
This year is geometric mixed with luminous in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next year, what's it going to be?
Do you know what? I don't actually know right now.
You need to create it.
Yeah,
So
because you
Taya
know,
Hughes, next year, you're going to create the next trend.
I will.
Yeah.
That is definitely a challenge that I would want to take on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll think about that one.
I just
more
wear what I
deeply.
suit. I wear
Yeah.
suits that are my size, my shape, and they kind of suit me. So I know what I should dress in.
Yeah. I use the trends to kind of direct, like now I find that I use the trends to kind of direct my window, my shop window, and what to talk
And
about.
your shop window looks outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
Drive past through Smithtown Road, look
Yeah.
for 7th Streets. There it is
Oh.
there. There's always a nice display there. And I brought friends with me to events that you've held in your
Yes,
shop.
you have.
And they have loved the style, a style they wouldn't have normally bought.
Yes.
That mixture of European and African together, beautiful.
That's my forte.
Yes, I know. I know. Keep
Oh.
doing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
I do
listening.
want to have another conversation with you some other time.
Sure.
But yes, I think we've come to the end of this conversation.
Well, thank you for
I
interviewing
didn't
me.
even ask you to tell us how people can connect with you.
Gary Millar
Yeah.
on Twitter, Gary Millar UK on Instagram, and remember it's Millar with an A.
Yep. Okay, there you have it. So we've come to the end of this episode of Explore Your Identity. Feel free to share this episode, like, subscribe, comment. We want to hear your thoughts and ideas. Actually, who would you want me to interview next? Who would you want my next guest to be? Type it in the comments. Let us know. You know, we might get them on. And yeah, we've come to the end. Thank you so much. I'm Taya Hughes and I'm your host today. Bye for now. Explore your identity with Taya Hughes.